Going on, guys? Dan here with Electric Reef. So today we are going to show you how to do a DIY par sensor. What you're going to need is the SQ110 probe from Apogee Instruments. This shipped is $165. So you can see it just comes with a little probe. Comes with 5 meters of wire, and the ends of the wire are spliced. They come pre-spliced, but we're going to splice them a little bit more here in a few. So, what else do we need? We need a digital voltmeter of your choice. This one I had lying around my garage for about 10 years. Still works fine, so I cut the ends of the wires. That cost me about 10 bucks for this. It does have to be 200 millivolt capable, as the par sensor itself sends out signal in millivolts. Alright guys, so you're going to want to remember these two numbers. You're going to want to remember the number 5 and the number 1.08. They're very important. Alright, so what you're going to need for this build, you're going to need your Apogee SQ110 par meter. You're going to need a digital voltmeter. You're going to need your soldering iron. You're also going to need a pair of scissors, your soldering wire, some shrink tubing, and a mini torch to heat your shrink tubing. And also, don't forget your electrical tape, very important. Alright guys, so starting out, you're going to want to cut back your wires. I cut them back about 1/2 inch. That way, when it comes time to solder, you can loop your wire back around into like a hook. You can hook them together, twist them, and it creates just a better joint for you to solder on. Makes it a lot easier keeping the wire together. So that little gray wire right there I just cut, that's just I believe a signal wire coming from your par sensor that is not used for this DIY project. So you're just going to cut it back, tape it off. So right now I'm just twisting the wires, getting them nice and firm. That way I can get a good connection. I don't have loose stray wires hanging all over the place. But you're going to grab some shrink tubing, cut it back to about 4 to 6 inches. Cut yourself a 4 to 6 inch piece, and you're going to slide it over whichever end you want, whether it be the Apogee sensor side or your digital voltmeter side. But you are going to slide that over before you make your connections and start soldering the connections. Alright, so now it's time to solder. Don't do what I did here. I kind of messed up. I did not use the hook method at first. When I got done filming, I said screw this, went back, took everything apart, did the hook method, and just worked out a lot better. Just a lot better of a connection. That's why I told you that at the beginning of this part, just so you know where to start out with. Don't do what I did here. It was a real pain. Yeah, it's an art form trying to solder, so just do a couple practice pieces first till you get used to it. And just like welding, you're in control of where the stuff goes. So once you learn how to manipulate it, it gets a little bit easier. Don't glob the solder on there. You just want enough to keep it connected, and you got to wait about 30 seconds after you solder to touch the wire for it to be nice and firm. So at this point, you're going to take your electrical tape and you're going to put a small piece around each solder point, and this will keep the metal connections from touching each other. And one thing I forgot to mention previously is you want to connect the black wire from the Apogee sensor to the black wire of your digital voltmeter, and you're going to want to do the same for the red wire. So now I'm getting the electrical tape over my connections, and I'm about ready to slide the shrink tubing over top of the connections. And the reason we're using the shrink tubing is you do not want salt water getting on these, getting into the wires. It can interfere with the signal, which can give you false readings. So I put a little bit too much electrical tape on here, and ended up having to go and cut a little slit, as you see there, to get this thing slid over. But I finally got it, and it's time to heat the shrink wrap. I got this little mini torch, puts out a lot of heat. You don't want to get directly on it, just give it a little bit of light heat until it starts shrinking on there, and you're good to go. Alright guys, so here's the finished product. I got my SQ120 power meter now wired into my Innova digital voltmeter. So what we're going to do is you're going to set this to 200 nanometers. And what this does is this picks up the signal from this. This sends out a signal in millivolts. Excuse me. So this sends out a signal in millivolts, and for, let's say here, you take the cap off, we're getting readings on here, we're good to go. So I know this thing's picking up something. If it's accurate, I do not know. So Apogee was kind enough to provide us with a few numbers. I told you to remember these numbers in the beginning of the video. The number 5 and the number 1.08. 5 equates to micromoles per meter squared per second, and your 1.08 equates to your immersion effect. Now the micromoles per second, for every 1 millivolt reading you get on here, you multiply it times 5. So if I get a reading on here from the power meter that says 50, times that times 5, that gives me 250. Now that is in open air, because these sensors are calibrated in open air under electric light, using electric light. They are not calibrated underwater. So Apogee has also been kind enough to give us the number 1.08, which equates to the immersion effect. Once you get your number, your micromoles number from your millivolts, you are going to also multiply that times 1.08. So I drew up a little bit of an explanation. Set your voltmeter at 200 millivolts. Voltmeter is reading 50. 50 times 5 equals 250 micromoles per meter squared per second. And then you times your 250 times 108 to compensate for being submerged underwater, and that gives you 270 for a grand total power of 270. So I hope that explains a little bit for you guys. Now we are going to head over to Rico's house and we are going to put this to the test. Rico has the full SQ120 setup. He did not wire his into a voltmeter. His is actually came from Apogee, wired into the Apogee's meter, and it already compensates for the immersion effect and all that fun stuff. So with a little bit of multiplication, you can get a par, but is it accurate? Let's go find out. Alright guys, we're over here at Rico's house. We're going to start doing some power readings on Rico's tank. We got the tape measure set up so we can get an accurate measurement on depth, and we're going to see if this thing lives up to its claim. So let's get some testing done. Alright guys, so we got all the numbers for my DIY setup and all the numbers from Rico's actual Apogee Instruments quantum flux setup. And this is the SQ200 model versus the SQ120 model, which is just the probe versus the whole setup, the probe and the meter. So we are going to test, which one is this?
This is the 510.
Yeah, we're going to test out the SQ510 model, and I don't know if you want to tell them a little bit more about what's the difference between that one and then this one.
This one's supposed to be more advanced to get the accurate of the par with the blue that's involved. So
that just reads the blue spectrum a little bit better.
So you get more than the basically you don't have to do the math. With the 200, you also had to do a conversion to get more of an accurate reading. The 510 that came out takes away that. So same with the other one. You have to do a conversion.
There we have it. All right, so we're going to get some readings on this and see what the differences are. Alright guys, so I got the final numbers for the power readings over at Rico's house. And we're going to start with the SQ200, which is the same exact sensor as the SQ110, except for the SQ200 already has the module assembled on it to display the readings. So at the surface, Rico was getting a 550 at 6 inches down, 475, 16 inches down, 350, and at the sand bed, 215. Now my DIY par meter at the surface was getting 540, 6 inches down, 432, 16 inches down, 324, and sand bed 151. So you can see the numbers are pretty close, but they vary a little bit. Now those numbers are with my the immersion effect and everything applied. So, and we go down here, and Rico also did readings on his SQ500, which measures blue, or better in the blue spectrum, and you can see the numbers are extremely close. Now this one, the SQ200, it does not automatically compensate for the immersion effect, so you kind of have to do that afterwards. The SQ500 compensates for all that. So as you can see, between the SQ500 and the SQ110, 540, 6 inches down on his SQ500, we're at 450, 16 inches down, 320, and at the sand bed 195. For mine, we're at about 540 at the surface, 6 inches down, 432, 16 inches down, 324, and at the sand bed 151. So you can see those numbers are very, very close until you get to the sand bed. And I have to say, the way we were holding the meters in the water, they varied a little bit. So when he was at the sand bed, his little setup got him a little bit closer to the sand bed, whereas mine was sitting up and kind of at an angle a little bit. So that might be why that reading got thrown off as much as it did. But I mean, yeah, you guys want a DIY par meter for about half the price of a full SQ200 setup. There you go, that's how you do it. So if you guys haven't done so already, run over to Rico's Reef tank and check out his channel and just show him some love, man. This guy's awesome. Thanks, Rico, for having me over and taking time out of your live stream to help me out with this, and I hope this has helped somebody else out and save somebody else money. Alright guys, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.